We are back again, working on the suspension, have everything laid out. We'll just jump right into this. Have all our C-clips or E-rings sitting here, mounted on a magnet. I did say shock tops earlier, but these are actually the shock bottoms that sit on the bottom of the shock where the piston slides through. Laid all these out. They want the smaller hole on the front shocks for a slower dampening. They want the 3-hole disc here, washer on the bottom shocks for a faster dampening, a little bit more squishier suspension. I did notice that there's a difference on these collars. This one stands up just a little bit taller, where that one is right there with the shock pistons, and those are over here. The other one's on the front, which are a little bit smaller. Alright, so we have everything laid out. I dug up some Teflon tape. Not too sure if you actually need it, but like I said, excuse me, that looks like Teflon tape wrapped around on that little assembly there, little assembly, and same on the end of the piston here. But I'm not too sure if it is or not. I could be wrong, but it does kind of look like Teflon tape. And this is just basically the whole little O-ring assembly, all packed into one and pre-built. And it is plastic. Alright, so we'll start putting these guys together. Probably start with just putting these little pistons or whatever on top of the shaft here. Get those all straightened away with the E-clips. So one moment please. Sorry for the interruption there on the last one with the quick stop. So and thanks for watching so far. Very much appreciated. Especially all the new subscribers, all the old subscribers, everybody. Very much appreciated. So 1 second here, let me start getting these guys together. And that is one Jesus clip attached, and time to put on one of these little washers and then snap on the other Jesus clip. My dad, the reason I said Jesus clip, my dad was a copy repairman for a major company back in the day, 3M, working on gigantic commercial copier machines and fax machines. He used to work with a lot of these little C-clips and E-clips and whatnot on the internals of the machines. Sorry to the religious guys, I'm just going to say that right now. But he used to call these Jesus clips, and you probably know why. Because they, as soon as it goes flying across the room, that's usually the first word that comes flying out of your mouth. So, little tidbit there on the Jesus clip. Alright, so we'll get this guy installed and then snap on that other C-ring. And that guy is installed. This is a very tight fit up the top here for getting your pliers on. I was using those small angled needle nose pliers. Very tight fit, so you want to be careful that you don't scratch the side of this plastic piston when you're sliding that in there, because that could really affect the way your suspension reacts and behaves. So that's all together. And once again, everybody, yes, please forgive me for my last reference on that on those little C-clips. Definitely don't want to offend anybody. And we are going to go on to the next portion of this particular shock, which is going to be installing it into this part right here and then screwing it onto that part right there. I guess before I do that, I'm probably going to snap one of these little ball coupler dealer jobbers into this here arm and get that taken care of. Gotta love my technical terms, eh? Be right back. And that is one installed, and the where did that go? That is inserted into there. And since it was just so easy to install, yeah, I know I'm going to get yelled at for doing this the wrong way. Piece of cake. Figured I'd throw it on camera. Alright, so that's on there. That's in here. Once again, I'm thinking that looks like Teflon tape. Not too sure, but just for the sake of argument, I am going to put a little bit of Teflon tape around that collar, as well as on the end of this thread here that I already have protruding through the hole. Making sure to do that before I put the Teflon tape on there. I really don't know if that really needs it or not. I mean, this is just getting threaded into here, so I don't think it really needs Teflon tape in there. If anything, that's just going to give you less of a bite on these threads, because that's going to be taking up space inside the thread going into the plastic. It's certainly not going to be You know, there's no fluid in the plastic, so you don't really need Teflon tape on there for a seal. But like I said, the end of the thread is white, so I'm not too sure if that's on purpose or if they're just indicating the difference between the shaft and the actual thread. Same with this. So I might actually just kind of screw one of these empty ones into one of these shock bodies, which are right around here. They screw into the bottom there. I might screw it into the bottom and just give it a little trial fit and see how loose it is and see whether it does need Teflon or not. I mean, it might be a tapered thread, like a pipe plug. If it's like a, you know, a pipe plug for standard plumbing, then it's a tapered thread where it starts out small at the bottom and gets fatter as it goes up to the top. And that, you know, seals everything up. So let me take a quick look at that and decipher whether that's tapered or not, and to see what the fit and finish is like on that before I decide to put any Teflon on it. And we are back again. Alright, so I trial fit one of these into here, and it is definitely a somewhat loose fit. So I put a little bit of Teflon tape on each one of these guys. I went ahead and assembled the rear shock assembly and did the same thing, put a little Teflon tape on those, as well as putting the balls into the cups here. So that is pretty much all assembled on that. It's just a matter of inserting them into the shock collars and and making another apology for that last comment, man, because since I said that comment, it's kind of a good thing they gave us extra clips, even though I did find the ones that I lost. Like after I said that one comment about the clips, man, oh boy. One clip went flying over this way, landed in my toolbox, dropped down, and got stuck on a teeny weeny small electric motor that was left over from that radio controlled helicopter that I tore apart a long time ago. Another one landed on my bottomless pit of a floor and had a hell of a time finding that. Another one, I got my phone plugged in, landed over here in that little gully there in between my living room and my kitchen, like underneath the gate. I had to pull the gate up to find it. And it was all the same one. It was all from just one of these guys trying to put it in on the top. Trying to put this one of these guys right up here in on the top. And yeah, lost it 3 times. Same clip. So, big public apology for saying that statement. Man, forgive me. Alright, so these are all together. And I'm going to go ahead and slide these up into the shock tubes here and get those taken care of. When you do put them in, you want to make sure to extend the piston upward a little bit, just to make sure. I gotta peel some of that Teflon back, just to make sure that it gets in past the halfway point down here at the bottom, because it's a little bit stiff in this area. Ideally, you might be better off just dropping the pistons in through to the top of the shaft, so you're not pushing it through all those threads. Just unscrew this collar up top and drop it down through the top, which is probably what I'm going to do with the piston, and then slide the rest of this unit into the bottom of it and go from there. So 1 second here. Alright, well, I got an extra C-clip sitting here. I did install the shock ends on here, making sure to try to get these up as even as possible. I just brought them up to the top of the thread. Obviously, if they are different lengths, it's going to affect the height of the truck on one side or the other, so you want those even. And I did bring these in from the bottom up. I didn't drop the pistons down through the top. I brought them in from the bottom. It just seemed to be a little bit smoother going in from the bottom. So the front ones are somewhat assembled. The back ones, I just put the arms on them, or put the end links on them. Same thing, tighten them down to about equal length, and then have them wrapped up with Teflon tape and ready to go to the next step. So we are going to turn the page and see what our next step is, and hopefully it's putting these collars on. Let's see here. Move this stuff off to the side. Making sure that I don't skip a step here. We've done that a couple times today, or in this build series. Definitely don't want to skip any steps, so we are going from page 70 over to 72, so that is correct. Front, Avant. Not even gonna try it. Yep, bringing that in from the bottom once again, showing that little bit of white on there. They don't mention Teflon tape anywhere in here that I've noticed. Maybe they do here. Holding the shock body inverted, fill the shock body with shock oil. Wait, holding the shock body inverted, fill the shock body with oil. To the bottom of the threads, okay. Insert the shaft assembly with the cartridge against the shock piston. Slowly tighten the cartridge until it almost bottoms out against the shock body. Do not tighten all the way. Slowly push the shock shaft assembly into the shock body. This will bleed excess oil out of the shock. Once the shaft is pushed all the way down the shock body, tighten the cartridge the rest of the way with a 7/16 wrench or a pair of pliers, approximately 1/8 of a turn. There should be no air in the shocks as you move the shaft in and out of the shock body. If there is, you will need to add some oil and repeat the bleed process. If the shock does not compress all the way, the shock has too much oil, simply loosen the cartridge about 1/4 of a turn and push the shaft into the body and retighten the cartridge. And then that is all the same thing in a different language. Well, we already got that assembled. Just need to put this on. Collar for the spring tensioner, this O-ring, the top, and the top collar, which we need to take off of the front shocks. Have the collars installed, the back shocks do as well. Alright, so we'll get to doing this and dig up some oil apparently. Once again, they did not mention anything about Teflon tape anywhere in here. It does tell you what part bags you need. Bag E2, bag E3, E4, and E5 times 2, deuce. Bag E1 times 2, and then this. So they are definitely not telling you whether or not that is Teflon tape. What's the part number here? 23303, 23303. So they're just describing the actual part itself, not the Teflon tape, just to reiterate that whole mess. So yeah, I mean, it would be kind of cool if they did say Teflon tape. I'm pretty sure that they want it on there, because when I put it on these guys and put them on, it was definitely where it should be as far as tightening this up. It definitely felt right with the Teflon tape in there versus without it. So I do think the Teflon tape was a good way to go as far as these guys. And I just went around it like once, twice, and then pulled it tight and ripped it off and flattened it back over. So that seemed to be plenty. Alright, on to the next step. Let's get these guys assembled and bust out the shock oil. One moment. Alright, well, I guess I got a little too excited by putting these together. They need to be apart. Apparently they want you to assemble the top of the shock and then fill this up with oil to the bottom of the threads, and then insert the cartridge, which is the bottom half here, and slowly work the oil out like that, which I'm going to have to reread the instructions. Holding the shock body inverted, fill the shock body with shock oil up to the bottom of the threads inside the shock body. Insert the shaft assembly with the cartridge against the shock piston. So you want your cartridge pulled back like that, so the piston is up against the cartridge. And then slowly tighten the cartridge until it almost bottoms out against the shock body. Do not tighten all the way. And then you slowly, so you just barely get this in so it's almost up all the way or almost tight. And then you slowly start pushing the piston upward. Slowly tighten the cartridge until it almost bottoms out against the shock body. Slowly push the shock shaft assembly into the shock body. This will bleed all the excess oil out of the shock. Oil or air. Once the shaft is pushed all the way down, well, let's move all this stuff out of the way here, very professional. Once the shaft is pushed all the way down into the shock body, tighten the cartridge the rest of the way with a 7/16 wrench or a pair of pliers, approximately 1/8 of a turn. There should be no error in the shocks as you move the shaft in and out of the shock body. If there is, you will need to add some oil and nice, it's not focusing. You're going to need to add some oil and repeat the bleed process. If the shock does not compress all the way, the shock has too much oil, simply loosen the cartridge about 1/4 of a turn and push the shaft out of the body and retighten the cartridge. Alright, well, let's get started on that little process. I guess before we get started on that process, they show some O-rings here on both ends, but there's 4 fat O-rings and 4 thinner O-rings. So as to which O-ring goes where is a question. They're not showing the second O-ring in here, unless that's it right there. Maybe they want you to slip the second O-ring down here on the bottom of that shaft. That might be what that little line is here on that Teflon tape. Although this one is not showing anything like that. Or maybe this one's not. Well, I don't know, man. Hard to tell. Hard to tell. And they are definitely not very descriptive as to which is which and why there is 4 of them. 4 of each. Interesting. Alright, trial and error. Be right back. Alright, well, I did notice that there is a very, very slight recess in the bottom of these shocks. Very slight recess down there. And I'm thinking the small O-ring might go in there. I could be wrong. People are probably going to start yelling at me on the comments, but I'm thinking that very teeny weeny recess that's in the bottom of that collar there could possibly be for this O-ring. Not too sure, but I'm kind of thinking maybe. I don't know. Once again, they do not mention it. They just show an O-ring right here. There's no mention of it anywhere else in any of this other stuff. So, like I said, I could be wrong about that. But I'm thinking that might be it. So, one more minute. Alright, we are back. I busted out the shock oil. They are both the exact same 32.5 weight TLR 74007 Team Losi Racing Oil, Racing Products, Team Losi Racing something. Alright, and then as far as these go, I kind of think that the O-rings go right there on that shaft or on the cartridge. I put that on all of them. Once again, I think that there's a little recessed area in this collar for that to slip into, and that would make the most sense. So I read the instructions like 100 times so far. They want you to put this, they want you to fill up the cartridge with oil until it's at the bottom of the threads, and then insert this cartridge, not all the way, almost all the way, and then slowly push the piston down to relieve any kind of air out of the cartridge, and then tighten it down that last little bit. So one more second here. Well, apparently I was wrong about that. That little O-ring does not go on here. It goes down in here for the shock top before putting that in through. And this definitely can't go on the bottom because it's way bigger than that. It'll actually fit right over the top of the end of this, the bottom of the shock collar, or the bottom of the shock tube, so it doesn't go there. Not too sure what you're supposed to do with this fat O-ring. And wrong again, the little O-ring goes on top of this shock collar top. This gets screwed down on top of that, then it gets screwed into here. Everything else comes in from the bottom. Once again, still no idea where that big O-ring is supposed to go, why it was in the thing. There's no listing of parts other than the parts bag. It does show you the parts bag, but it's not telling you you know, about any of the other parts. You know, I mean, if you didn't need those big O-rings, then why did they put them in there? And if you did need them, like I said, they should have everything listed here. All this stuff should be listed, you know, with the diameter of the O-ring. That way you know where it goes. Once again, no reference to the bigger O-ring. I believe all of these are the same size. They both appear to be. So that's not it. And it's the O-ring is so big that it'll fit right over the end of this shock tube. So it wouldn't do you any good to have it down here at the bottom. Don't know. We're gonna continue here. Thought I seen a spider on me. Hold on. Alright, still no clue on those. I took all the O-rings off of the shock bodies that were there. Put them around the top half of these little shock tops. Inserted the shock top, and then with my pinky and I just took my pinky and just kind of pushed that O-ring around on the bottom of that shock top, and then gently snugged it up here on top of the shock tube. So I'm trying to talk fast here. I'm running out of video time, so 1 second. Yeah, and there was a huge gnarly spider crawling across my leg. It was crazy. But anywho, 1 second. Alright, they want you to fill it to the bottom of the threads, and I think we got it right there. I'm not too sure. It's pretty close, and we'll try that. 1 second. Alright, now we need to insert the cartridge like this with the piston up against the cartridge, and slowly push the shock shaft assembly into the shock tube. Well, actually got to screw it in, partially tighten it. Don't tighten it all the way. Slowly push the shock shaft assembly into the shock body. This will bleed out the excess oil. So we're going to attempt that right quick here before I run out of time. And that's not too shocking that went horrible. It's a good thing they give you so much oil. I only used that much out of the first container. The fronts, I think, are okay. But the backs, I'm kind of worried about. This one front shock, it bottoms out great. Comes back and doesn't pull back or anything. Doesn't sound like it has any air in it. But these guys here, I'm not too sure about. I'm going to have to do some research online. But I'm at my 23-minute mark. We might be done with the shocks, might not be. Find out here on the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Click like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Once again, thanks for watching.